Greetings, Ken Jones here, Leica Geosystems Training Manager for the Public Safety Group. I'm in San Ramon today, and today we're doing a November 7th, 2018 webinar on the Lunch and Learn for fundamentals of Leica Geosystems software and microsurveys incident mapping suite. And I think we're going to progress through. It's just these Lunch and Learns are kind of a new thing for us. This is our second one. Chanel, out of Microsurvey, product manager for Map 360. Did our first one last month in October, and we try and do these from 12 to 12:20 once a month on Central Time. And today's topic is updating your software and tips and tricks to staying organized. Thought we'd start at the beginning of getting new users, keeping them organized. 3 topics today we're covering: some fundamentals to Windows, how to keep yourself organized so you don't lose files. Then we're going to go into recommended data file structures, how anybody should, in the public safety sector, keep ourselves organized. And then updating software will be blended in throughout the entire presentation, but talk about the new versions of some software that just get you updated where you should be. And so let's start in with some Windows fundamentals. Let's see here. My recommendation right off the bat is you need to maintain installer files. When you install a piece of software, it's critical that basically you keep the original installer program. And so I've made a couple little videos throughout this thing. The installer program can actually go through and extract files that are basically tucked into compartments of your computer. So you want to go in and look at what version of software you have, and you can right click it and say, what are the properties? So in this particular case, I'm demoing how I'm updating Cyclone Register 360. The best recommended method is to locate your installer program that you use to install that version of the software. So I keep a file. I have my old versions, and these are the 9.3. And so I'm going through and I'm going to find my Register 360 setup. We've now released 1.51. So I find my old version, and I want to open that particular installer and use it to uninstall the software from the computer. I know a lot of people simply will just delete it, or they'll think that installing over the top is permissible. It's recommended to uninstall it. Keep your C drive from filling up with unneeded software, but that's just a really good method. If you are not able to find that installer, don't fret too much. The second method is to uninstall the program using the Windows function of uninstall program. And the best way to do this is go down to your command line, and as you uninstall, you'll find yourself that uninstall program from your control panel. And you can whiz through your different programs that you say I'm going to update. You can actually see what version is in there as well. There's the BLK Data Manager. I'm going to update that one. That one's coming out new. I just hit uninstall. This is the second best way to uninstall your programs. And now, installing a program, as silly as it may be, when you're installing programs, most of the time you're going to get this stuff, and I have a downloader that I've given it's zipped up, so you'll unzip it, and it's an exe file. Some people are quite new at Windows, and they do this, and believe it or not, some people say, how do I install the program? We get those questions. And so you unzip your files, and you have them, and just follow through all the recommended locations where you store it for the most part. And that's pretty darn simple, but some people say, how do you actually install? The accept and make it available for all users is a common function on a lot of the software. And now our next spot, get your current software. Where do we do that from? There is a location on the internet called MyWorld. And here's an example that I'm going to be bringing in on the internet. MyWorld has an example that you basically have, you list your products that you've purchased in software, and you are able to find where you can download your actual current versions of software. And it's all available by different types of equipment that you might have. So an HDS laser scanner, you can update your P-Series. Right there's where you're going to find your downloads, and software, manuals, or tools are going to be available at MyWorld. So that's a good spot. Everyone should have an account. Now, a lot of agencies will be the primary person running that or the like administrator. And the recommended idea is that each user that uses our software or our equipment should actually have an account. And that's something you should put together. Get logged in to do that. Now, 5 computer setup tips. And when you set up your computer, it's a good idea to do these things. Let's scroll into the first one. Windows 10, how to describe this, but the Windows Pro interface is a lot easier for most people to actually understand how to actually use it and get in and see it. Running programs. Update your Windows and graphics drivers frequently. That's going to be an important thing that you end up doing. And your video card. You have an OpenGL settings that are set up. I have a little video online that you can look at that number right there and bring it in. And it will go through how to update your video card settings. Now there's OpenGL settings that occur, and my recommendation is that you, in summary, you follow through and look for your 32, yes, yes, yes inside those, and that's first occurrence of that's where we want to actually find that, and that's the summary of that video. But by activating that, a lot of people don't know that that's an important function to get to maximize the video card out of your computer while using the Cyclone and our software. Now, your C drive. The C drive itself is going to fill up pretty darn quick with our new scanners that are producing a fair amount of data. Any of these 128 gig hard drives, you want to make sure that they stay fairly empty. The larger your C drive can be, the better. So at least keep a quarter of it empty if at all possible, and get some external drives, and that will really help things up. Now, a good mouse, I'm a fan of the Connections 3D mouse, and there's a link if people want to follow through. I can share some of these out at the end of the webinar, but those are kind of an important function, and using the trackpad is not the best way to basically be doing 3D work. Now, 8 general Windows tips we're moving into. We train a lot of beginners, and it's surprising how many people don't know functions about Windows that make life easier when operating the software. Now, the Windows key. There is a Windows key, and it has a ability to basically press the Windows key and the D. You can jump to your desktop and back and forth. So if you have a bunch of windows open, that's a very handy function. I happen to like the idea that you can push windows around with this. Windows looks just like this in the lower left by the Alt key, and your Windows arrows buttons allow you to push different panes around and then open and fill them so you can maximize your Windows screen space. A very handy tool. Now, when you copy your files using a parent folder as a key thing, a lot of people will grab the internal contents of a folder. That's not recommended. We want you to grab things from the parent file. So essentially, if I'm going to take some data from one of my scanners, you want to bring your window up, drag into where you're going to find your data, and drill into the location where you're going to put your data. So by placing 2 windows side by side, you don't accidentally drop the data into the wrong folder, making it harder to find. Now, this is where people make a mistake. They'll go through and collect the inside of that and drag it over. We don't want you doing it. Grab the parent folder, and you can use the drag and drop function. That's a permissible way, or you copy paste method. And I actually prefer that people make less mistakes with copy paste, because your mice can sometimes accidentally drop it in the wrong spot, and you simply do a copy paste function. To me, that's a better way to stay organized, not accidentally dumping your files into the wrong location. Now, your right mouse and left mouse, when we hover over some options, it's basically going to be important that when you're hovering over the icon, it gives you different commands that open up in a lot of the Cyclone programs, versus if you double click on the words, you can basically change the text. A good habit, stay over the icon and then use your selection. Now, maximizing the windows. When you have a window open, a lot of new users leave these sidebars open up on the Reg 360 program, and you're trying to work on a point cloud. in the middle of this little space here. Not the easiest method to do that. A lot easier to basically grab that larger scene and tuck those off to the side so you're going to maximize your screen that you work in. That's a new habit that people realize they should do, is maximize their space. Keyboard shortcuts. In Cyclone, we have a keyboard shortcut that will open up and give you the ability to utilize the keyboard in its total function. So a lot of them are the seek key people know about, spacebar, but we've programmed in a customized keyboard for the Cyclone user to really maximize the speed of using their product. File trees. When they're all expanded, new users will get a little bit lost in saying, which folder, which scan am I working with? My recommendation is that we tuck all these up, and it's just going to create a lot more ease for the user to work through your file system. So when you're working on one, close up the file trees and keep unused file trees closed. This is a kind of an important thing to keep closed. It's just going to keep you more organized and less likely to dump files or work in the wrong spot. So when you're saving a file, navigate up the tree and back down to the desired folder. Now, here we're going to save a snapshot. This is also leading into where we store stuff on our computer. But this little icon up at the top that looks like a folder allows you to drive up to the tippy top of where our folder trees are, and in Windows, save them in a proper location. So I like to put all my Cyclone produced material in the Cyclone folder, so I have a independent location where all my JPEGs and distributables are stored. Doesn't matter whether you're using forensics or any field, it's very useful to keep those things organized. Now, staying organized, I recommend the use of a folder template where we copy, paste, and rename it. So here we go. Let me do a quick review of this idea of Windows folders. And the Windows folder is an example where I recommend we end up having your raw data stored in a particular location where all files that are coming off the scanner work in that location. All your control files, anything that goes in raw. So this is a preservation folder for original data. Anything that you do in Cyclone or Reg 360 archives would be in the Cyclone folder. Anything you produce as a digital asset for TrueViews go in that little folder. Then you have deliverables. Now, I've seen some people use templates that have like 18 or 20 different subfolders. It gets a bit hard to manage the parent system. But let me show you through that. This template should be existing where you copy, paste, and then rename it. But keep it empty and don't fill your template up and then have to paste a whole bunch of times and empty it. So here we go. That's an example of it. I've put red for scanner work, blue for Cyclone, and I'm moving on our different colors here. So your scan data, here's an example of how I would do this. Some BLK being downloaded. Essentially, you'd Wi-Fi into your BLK, and you have to decide before you do these downloads, it's best to copy, paste, and rename your template so you have a home to put it in, so you're not moving things or leaving duplicate copies on your desktop. And then you feel comfortable more about clearing the data off the scanner to keep it more operational, so you're not filling up the hard drive on that BLK. But as we basically connect, we're going to pull down our 7 scans for a project. I highly recommend on BLK users out there, you have the ability to go through and manage your capture settings on that. Validate that those are what you want your machine to be in as you put it in your car out there to do your crime scene work, and then keep your time synced. But get your downloads going, and you're going to basically find out where you put that into your template. Navigate to your raw folder, and instantly the download will go to the proper home. Now, BLK data will either come in as individual folders as .blk. I find it advantageous to create a new folder that will hold subgroups of it in case you plan on doing additional scans, and that's just kind of a nice feature to stay organized. And we just close out that function. So your Cyclone data. In your Cyclone IMP folders, you have the ability to store those in the proper home as well. And just a quick review, that's the best place to do that. So when you create a new database, I don't recommend using database name, but we always navigate to the location when we're configuring our databases, and you store your IMP in this location, or you would direct your Cyclone Register 360 files to that same particular spot. So in a Register 360 archive, same idea. What we want to do is set up our file structures and set our storage location to where our archive folder, where we're going to store all our projects, is just go ahead and set it in an archive folder in your Cyclone. And that's where, when you store this out and say archive it, it'll go to its proper home. Now, digital assets. As we manage digital assets, like I showed earlier about capturing a screen capture from Cyclone, the digital asset folder really can be very important to keeping yourself organized for project forensic evidence of any kind as you start building the cases, to keep it organized in subfolders. Crime scene pictures, they can be logged in there, the good ones, the close-ups for your true views, geotags, and by not breaking a link when you put it in its proper home, that true view will be available to operate off the Leica laptops for years without having to re-establish the path to that digital asset. So you can archive all sorts of stuff in that particular location. They're going to be with that case envelope and such. So any external images that you process, all of these things can come in. And just it's a handy way to stay organized anywhere we put surveillance videos. I just create separate footages for anything. If you have accident car data from, data recorders, any of that nature can all be put in there. So our surveillance videos, my recommendation, I got an email tech support thing that how do we put videos in? It's best to convert those to Windows Media file formats and then have those available for quick linking. Now, another option is your sitemaps and variables from Google can be popped in this location too. And in your true views, if you're going to store things, new subscription services are available where you can push out true views up. These are great ways to get yourself presenting data to sharing it. That's something I think is great. Your LGS files are going to be new for a lot of people, and these are available for pushing out videos and displaying. Your TrueView local versions that you produce, these are the most common things that people have been using over the years. And when we start getting into seeing those, I store all those in a local versions folder, keeping myself organized that this is a master. If somebody defense asks, what did you produce for somebody? I have a copy of it and I can reproduce it from that, whereas just burning it to a USB drive and not having original copy. So those are kind of an important function that we stay organized. Your Map 360 data, CAD data, that's where you end up putting all your Map 360 programs for drawing your diagrams and products that come out of it. So in summary, we got ourselves an investigative case folder. In Register 360, there's a vault, and I'd like to recommend that this is something as we start people getting really popular with this great program, is the vault is where you're going to put your investigative folders for most all of your forensic work for a year. By creating that master vault and putting that into a special folder on the D drive, you want to keep that off C if all possible, it's going to be a great place to store data, and it makes it accessible for the program, all your hot links and such. Now, in this program, we browse to the location where we want to put our storage folder. And by putting it in there, we end up getting all our data readily accessible to us, and we can archive it by year. Obviously, you'd have a 2019 vault, and you just reallocate and put that as the current storage vault. Now, available now is you can name those vaults. So here it's rather than storage 6, I'd recommend you go in and actually custom name that to your investigative folder 2018 investigations. And that can be a very helpful tool to stay organized with Reg 360 data. I have this PowerPoint that's going to come out to people, and they can actually look at how to do this. So I recognize that people set that can only handle storage webinars for too much time. Read it a bit better versus being so lost in storage one, reference storage data for you to look at. Nice to stay customized. So it's a resource tool. Now, updating software is what we wanted people to talk about here a little bit today. Checking your expiration date for your CLM is an important function. Uninstalling all your old versions, that's an important function as well. Run your Windows updates. Get your video card drivers updated before we do our updates. Now, all our sensors and firmware have downloadable firmwares that you can basically find. Here's the most current version for each of those tools that you have, whether you're using the P-Series, the RTC, the BLK. Different versions of those softwares are available. Even our C10 can be downloaded. Each one has a different software. And so those software pieces can be updated from MyWorld, and you basically can update those. P-Series users, you should update your firmware files, format that hard drive and keep it clear, and update the supporting software like your simulator and your data copy tools with every firmware. Your Cyclone Field is an iOS app. Make sure that's current. Your BLK, download new firmware and Wi-Fi connect that thing. So it's very easy to update that. Get your data manager. That is one of the most important programs I think out on the market that people don't recognize as existing, is the data manager to produce full files that come off that BLK as a BLK file. Great tool. And of course the C10 firmware be updated. Now Cyclone software, same idea. I've covered it earlier. And the most important thing is that you should extract the files and then just simply follow your loader. We're at 1.73 on our CLM, which is the licensing program. So you want to make sure that your CLM's updated. If you're making a big jump from 9.1 up into the 9.23s, you're going to want to see a CLM update, which will be important. Just a review that you should basically remove that program. Your Register 360, very easy to update. Now our deliverable software, this is all no charge software. You should keep updated on those TrueView and the TrueView plugin. Make sure that you are updated into that Explorer, into your software in the Internet Explorer. Jetstream, the Jetstream has a self-extracting file and the LGS files. These are all fantastic tools for new deliverables that the versions are up at 1.5 now. And if you haven't had a chance to use those, send me an email and make sure you get a chance to try out the new Jetstream product. It's fantastic. The Pack and Go is a function that still exists to help people make great, very professional presentations. So here's a TrueView Cloud from New Jersey. And essentially this example here is they've linked a JSV file within the TrueView. And it's a great way to share data and present very full presentations where people can now fly through your presentations from a link. Great tool. Now Map 360, we've included a handout in the handouts on updating the Map 360, but there's some web access locations that we can get out. And if you're using the evidence recorder, also keeping updated on that is important. So in summary, that is our web updates and fundamentals of software. Sorry for going over about 5 minutes, but right now I want to see if there's any questions out there. Chanel's monitoring the questions online and see what's happening. Chanel, you there?
Yes, I'm here. Thanks, Ken. So I just have a quick question for you. If the user doesn't have a MyWorld account, is there somewhere else they can go to download the latest software?
I have right now, just to keep everybody rushed into doing this, a link as a Word document in the handouts section of this webinar that'll be active for 3 months into January for the newest releases, all the newest releases that are listed at MyWorld for the most common software that I presented today. So they can actually download those right from a web link that's connected right up in case they don't have that MyWorld account.
Okay. And then also for Map 360, we are also on MyWorld as well. And you can also download the latest from our website and from our help desk. So there are a few places you can find our download links.
That's great.
And that's also included in that handout.
Chanel?
All right, thank you, Ken, for your time.
Rick, real quick, what are we covering next month?
Let me just pull that up. 1 second here. We're going to be covering the evidence reports in Map 360 and how you can attach all your different digital assets, as well as include layer support in your PDF.
Excellent. All right.
So we hope to see you all next month.
Thanks a lot, Chanel.
Thank you, Ken.